So if it bends the knees, that means it has to be at the back. So hamstrings is at the back. Okay? So hamstrings connect to the back of the tibia. Okay, so that's why it can pull the tibia this way. And this side, it connects to the sit bone. So if the hamstring has to stretch, either this back of the tibia should move away from the buttock, or the sit bone should move away from the back of the calf. That's when the hamstring will stretch. So here also your movement should have information. So if you think a forward bend will stretch the hamstring, so if I am that person, forward bend will stretch your hamstring, and my forward bend is this. Nothing, right? Because I am just bending at my head and the lumbar, or I do this, like this. Nothing, because my buttock have actually gone towards the back thighs here. Okay? And my tibia also has gone a bit like this, so nothing really happens. So you have to have the information to even work at the shapes properly. Okay? So you have to know that stretching happens when the attachments of the muscles, the bones, one of them move away from the other. Yeah, then you have to know, okay, this muscle is connected to which bones and which should move away. Now, what is the hip joint? The bones of the hip joint. Femur is right. What part of the femur? Head of the femur. Okay, now what part of the pelvis? It's a socket called, Pekun, you should know, acetabulum. Okay, so head of the femur connecting to the acetabulum of the pelvis, that is the hip joint. And what is the nature of this joint? Like knee is a hinge joint, so what is a hip joint? Do you know? Since you said knee is a hinge joint, so what is the type of joint at the hip? Is the hip a hinge joint as well? It's ball and socket joint. Okay? Hip is a ball and socket joint. So ball and socket joint gives room for a wide variety of movements. Hinge joint can only straighten and bend. So hip, ball and socket joint, there is flexion, there is extension, there is abduction, there is adduction, there is external rotation, there is internal rotation. Okay, 6 movements are possible. Now, piriform is location and function. External rotation of the hip, okay? When we say external rotation of the hip, it actually means the thigh bone. Thigh bone is part of the hip joint. So external rotation is an action of the piriformis. Now where does it lie? Which part of sacrum? Front of sacrum to greater trochanter. Okay, do you want to see the skeleton, or should I pull it out? Okay, so this is the sacrum. So this is the back of the sacrum. Technical term is posterior sacrum. Okay, the inner portion is the front of the sacrum. Anatomical term is anterior sacrum. So the piriformis runs from the anterior sacrum to the greater trochanter. Okay, so the line of pull of piriformis is coming from back to here. So when it pulls the greater trochanter in that direction, it rotates. Okay, so the line of force, once you understand, you know how the movement will be. So yeah, okay, I don't want to confuse you right now. So that's the main thing. Okay, piriformis, anterior sacrum to greater trochanter, it externally rotates the thigh. But what I want you to just bear in mind is, if some physiotherapist or sports doctor says, no, the anterior, it doesn't always rotate, externally rotate, you have to know why. So, it all depends on the location of the piriformis, the line of force. So from the front of the sacrum to the greater trochanter, in this position, it can just externally rotate. But when the thigh bone comes like this same pull to the greater trochanter, it actually internally rotates. When the thigh is down here, it externally rotates, but if it's more than 90-degree flexion, the same pull as the result of internally rotating. So that's why we do piriformis stretches. One of it is the pigeon, Ekapada Kapudasana, which is an external rotation forward bend. Now, external rotation by right is a contraction of piriformis. Okay, but because it's here like this, it is 90-degree flexion. It actually tends to internally rotate, and instead we are externally rotating. It starts to lengthen the fibers. Plus, you have to always bear in mind, stretching happens when you take the sacrum a bit away from the greater trochanter. Okay, so in Ekapada Kapudasana, the common problem is the piriformis is tight. So when you go this way, the sacrum is pulled towards the greater trochanter. So people will be like this. So that's why we say the square pelvis is important to move that piriformis one attachment away from the other. That's when the stretch happens. Okay, so same thing with rotated triangle. All that helps to stretch the piriformis in that context. The two attachments, one is being moved away from the other. Yeah. So what are the muscles which abducts the hips? Huh? Okay, sartorius is true, but the main two big muscles are gluteus medius and tensor fasciae latae. Okay, they are the main abductors. So abductors are, sometimes you'll hear people refer to it as abductors, is all fine. So they run from the lateral iliac crest. Lateral means side, crest means the top, ilium is this bone. So they run from this lateral iliac crest to the greater trochanter. Since it's running this way, when they contract, they pull the greater trochanter this way, and this is abduction. Okay? Abduction. Now, if I don't let my leg go this way and then fire this, then what it does is it will pull the lateral iliac crest towards the greater trochanter. Okay? So either greater trochanter towards the lateral iliac crest or lateral iliac crest towards the greater trochanter. So that is the function of the gluteus medius and tensor fasciae latae. Because of this, we can balance on one leg. Okay, so if you watch me, the moment, so the pelvis is held by these two thigh bones. So the moment one support is taken off, by right, the pelvis should immediately collapse this way, because there is nothing. Its base is taken off, it should fall this way. But the moment this happens, this abductor fires and it pulls this pelvis down towards the greater trochanter so that there is no drop which happens. So we can do this thanks to gluteus medius. We can walk without falling. Each time I lift the leg, I should collapse, So that is, sometimes after a lot of drinks, liquor drinks, our cerebellum doesn't function properly. So cerebellum, you know, that's the part of the brain which is in constant communication with the rest of the body to prevent you from falling. So it doesn't function well when you drink beyond a point. Then when you walk, you have the drunkard's walk, where you take one leg, you collapse this way, you collapse this way. That's because the brain is not able to quickly fire the pelvis, the abductors. So if I ask you, what are the muscles which help to hold the pelvis stable or help to balance you on one leg? This is it. Okay. Talk basically of the two. Okay. Now, the adductors are muscles which bring the thigh towards the midline, like this. So we learned basically two. One is adductor brevis, and I think you learned also adductor magnus. Yeah, I'll just revise that. Then the five writhis. What are the five writhis? Okay, one is, okay, you said Viparya is one. She already said pramana. Then Vikalpa. Anything else? Yeah, Nidra Smriti. You know, these are the five categories of experiences. And then it has subdivisions. Pramana is valid. So Patanjali encourages to be more with pramana, like valid knowing. Okay? That comes through your direct senses, comes through proper inferencing, and the knowledge which comes to you through proper authorities, pramana. Viparya is unverified sources, so rumors and sometimes even the media, what comes across is not exactly true. It's what they sometimes want us to believe for vested interests. So that's all coming under Viparya. It is meaning superimposed on an object, which needn't be the actual meaning of the object. Okay? Adat Rupa Pratishtam, meaning a form which is not the actual form of the object is put on top. Viparya. Okay? In a way, like perfumes, makeup, they are all Viparya. Okay? So we might be stinking, but put the perfume, we become attractive. We smell nice. People will say like we smell nice, but that is masking the truth of the object, which is not clean. So the current world thrives on Viparya. Okay, you can be old, but then there are different methodologies of I don't know, plastic surgery and all kinds of things, whereby your original tooth is gone, but new teeth are fixed there. Everything is, you put stuff on top of you, whereby you are actually looking different. So Viparya applies to all these things. But generally what we are talking about as Viparya is our is our penchant to connect to rumors and such kind of things and believe it, and gossips and such things. Vikalpa is words which has no real stuff, no real backing, and kind of an imaginary, fictitious kind of language and words. So that is something at Manasa we are trying to really reduce. So Hatha Yoga language, the teaching language, can be a bit flowery, okay? Because to help people connect to movements and all that. But yet, we want to reduce such kind of instructions. For example, I often hear the term hug. Hug. Are you familiar with this language? Like if you're with a little bit of, I don't know, hug the muscles to the bone, hug the outer arms, hug the outer arms to the bones, something like that. Are you familiar? This kind of language is rampant, okay? And said in an accent, it sounds really true. Hug your outer arms to the inner arms and all this kind of presentation, total Vikalpa. There is no muscle which can just hug. Okay, so you give proper anatomical instructions. Externally rotate the arm is what they want. Okay, but they will say hug the outer arms to the inner arms or something like that. that there is no anatomical truth behind it. So torque maximum which can be put to a valid base. Okay, so externally rotate the upper arms, that we know, okay, teres minor infraspinatus does that. Straighten the arms, okay, that is good, straighten the elbows. Instead of saying some kind of language which gives an impression of some kind of heavy kind of knowledge, but actually is just imaginary, fictitious knowledge. That is vikalpa. So your instructions should have the back. Okay? Even when you're saying, be a witness, you have to give it a ground by saying anterior cingulate cortex. Okay? Connect to your body parts, receive the inner sensations of the body and connect to empathy, insula. So everything we should be able to back it with a proper ground. We can't simply throw words and say that it's all in the spiritual world. You know, like that kind of thing which is rampant in yoga, you have to reduce. So Nidra and Smriti is quite okay. Smriti, what we mean is incidental memories. That is what we want to reduce. Operational memory, that is part of our knowledge. Okay, so when we say let go of memory, it's not by forgetting sun salutations, how to do, forgetting how to drive. No, that all is part of your wisdom, part of your knowledge. What we mean is let go of the fact that that person didn't call you back, or that person didn't smile at you, or that person said that you are not very good or something. That kind of incidental kind of memories, we want to nirodha, we want to put it down rather than they becoming toxic in you. Now we are into the 4th week. What is sacroiliac joint? Fast. What are the bones involved, Bacon? Sacrum and ilium. Okay, so that's quite easy because in the term itself, it is telling what are the bones. So sacrum and the ilium are joined together, and that joint is called the sacroiliac joint. Okay. So at every joint, generally, if it's a joint meant for movement, then there will be a muscle between the two bones, which helps you to move, make a movement at that particular joint. So between the knee and the tibia, you have 4 quadriceps at the front, you have 3 hamstrings at the back. So we clearly know that it is meant to do this bending and straightening movement. And at the hips you have, from your hip to thigh, you have the abductors, you have the adductors, you have so many muscles. In that way, you don't have a muscle running exclusively between the ilium and the sacrum. So then we know that this is not a joint of mobility. Only ligaments, mainly it's just ligaments holding these two together, and ligaments are agents of stability, not mobility. Muscles agency of mobility, ligaments agency of stability. So sacroiliac joint, we want to hold that joint stable. So in that context, how that knowledge informs our movement is, we have to see sacrum and the hips as one unit, and then instead of seeing sacrum as the last part of the vertebral column, you see the pelvis itself as part of the vertebral column. So it moves together. So in asymmetrical postures are where one leg is in front. Then when you move, what can happen is you're taking the spine towards the front leg, but that pelvis is not moving forward. So my right pelvis is going forward, so the right pelvis will pull my right side of the sacrum along with it, but my left pelvis is staying there. That means the left sacrum is not moving forward. Okay, but the right is moving forward. Then that creates a little bit of space between the sacrum and the ilium. That can create a problem. So we want to hold the two ilium and the sacrum together. and moving in that way rather than keeping one pelvis one way, one part of the sacrum stuck there, moving here, that separates them. Okay, so holding it intact, moving together is the takeaway from that bit of knowledge for us. Okay? Now, the psoas, its connections to the bones and its function. Huh? Okay, joins the upper body and the lower body, but exact attachments. Pekon, you were saying something? Okay, clarity. So, Tanuja, do you know clearly something? Anybody knowing clearly? Okay, psoas rises from the transverse processes of the vertebral bodies of all the 5 lumbar, and it connects to the lesser trochanter, that is this portion. It goes through the pelvic rim here and then dives backward and connects to the lesser trochanter. So it goes forward, it goes backward, so like this. Okay, so in one way, at Manasa we see this as a beautiful explanation of the singularity becoming the duality. So the singular spine, that just divides into 2 at the psoas and is changing form, that's all. So you have one fertilized ovum, which then splits up into 4 types of cells, each cell specializing. One will be nerve cells, one will be muscle cells, one will be bone cells, one will be fat cells. So here the spine is coming down as 1, then it becomes the 2 psoas, then it becomes the 2 bones, the legs. It's just the singularity into duality through the psoas. Okay? And so through psoas into the spine, we are asked to moving from duality to singularity. So all this becomes context. So what yoga teachers should be adept in is not only in giving excellent sequences with shapes, but in giving making things a context, which makes people think and connect to this essential context of yoga, which is duality and singularity and such things. So psoas is a big opportunity to link anatomy to philosophy. So, what is viveka? Discernment, capacity to discern. Okay, viveka, one thing you have to know is viveka is both practice as well as a capacity. Okay, so when we say we all have, in varying proportions, we all have certain amounts of discerning capacity. Okay, that is viveka. But we are also practicing viveka, practicing to discern more. So when does viveka apply? Why do we need viveka? Yes, yep, in a situation to see, but viveka is needed because everything is like mixed together. Okay, so there is nothing which is pure in Prakriti. Okay, everything is co-mingled. So when things are co-mingled, we need to discern which is which, and that is viveka. So the example they give is red hot iron, the phenomena of red hot iron or the phenomena of the red crystal. Okay, here viveka is needed, where you have to understand that iron by nature is cold. So red hot iron is not the nature of the iron, but because there has been fire on the iron for a while, then the iron is red hot, and that is going to change. So that you need discernment. Okay, otherwise you will think that iron is a hot thing. Okay, so that is discernment. Similarly, a crystal is colorless in its true nature, and if it looks red, then you discern that it's because there is a red flower or there's a red garment near that crystal, and the crystal is just reflecting that. So in the redness of the crystal, you should see crystal as non-red and red as the property of something else. That is Viveka. Yeah, makes sense from nonsense. So cut the non from nonsense and leave the sense. Okay? So generally the world is viparyaya vikalpa. There will be a lot of things superimposed, and we should take that out and see the sense. Then sometimes the world falls for attractive speakers who puts words in ways. Advertisement is almost completely vikalpa. Okay, fanciful promises which cannot be backed by reality, but yet it holds such a fascination. We lack discernment. Advertisement which says that it will make you look trim by rubbing paste or some things, and which are expensive. Generally, like nowadays, since I practice a little bit of handstand, wherever handstand word comes up, I see it. So there are programs, advertisements, 6 weeks to handstand, 4 weeks to handstand, 28 days to handstand. All rubbish. Okay, it won't happen like that. That is vikalpa. Okay, but if you're a business person, then you have to know that vikalpa works. Reality do not work. People do not pay for reality. Okay? So vikalpa works. 28-day handstand comes with a money back option, But majority of people won't ask back the money. So 28 days, nothing much is going to happen, because every skill is a learning of the nervous system by continuous repetition. So it's not like a course can do it for you. It is by your repetition that your nervous system has to understand and embody. So we can't simply, but we can charge high, vikalpa, because people want impressive stuff without much work and in short time. Okay, so if you advertise like that, 6-pack abs in 6 weeks, people are going to buy, rather than saying that, I don't know when you'll get the 6-packs, it depends on a lot of factors, and you just get into the process. When the 6-packs come, let the 6-pack come, my fee is this. Nobody's going to buy your program. Okay, so, but I'm just telling you, as a consumer, you have to practice discernment. Okay, so second chapter, 28th verse, and the 3 principles of Manasa. So it says, Yoga anga anusthanat ashuddhishaye jnana deepti avivega khyade. That is the verse. So when you split it into 3, the first part is Yoga anga anusthanat. Stha means stand upon, to install. So we put or install different practices of yoga in different moments. In a studio environment, you put the mat, and your yoga is that which is done on the mat. That is something a Manasa teacher should always remember. Never end the class saying, okay, the yoga practice for today is over. Never say that. Only say the mat practice is over. Okay? So when they step out of the class, then the next, whatever they are doing, they have to start. They have to stand some other aspect of yoga. Maybe they are engaging in a conversation with somebody, their satya and ahimsa becomes the anga of yoga. So like that, or your contemplation, or you put a context of karma kaushala. You're going in your workplace. There you go by, how can I lend more skillfulness into this action? Today I saw a kind of interesting forward. These are people going for jogging in Sweden. So what they're doing is, along with jogging, they also pick up any plastic bags or cups which are wherever they see. That's part of the jog. Okay, so they are calling that plogging or something. Okay, so that is Yoga Anga Anusta for jogging. Okay, while running, they are making it an yajnam. Yajnam, do you remember? Karma, but dedicated to the welfare of a bigger context, not just for us. That becomes a yajna. Then the jogging becomes yoga. Okay, so like that. So what can I do here? What can I bring into here, into this action? That is the Yoga Anga Anusthana. Then what happens is Ashuddhi She. The impurities start to drop off. Impurities can be, is not impurity as impurity, but distractions, too much of expectations, continuous self-judgment of ourselves, continuous condescending kind of look at ourselves, all that will drop. Okay? Ashuddhi She. Then Jnana Dipti. Okay, Yoga Anga Anusthana, Ashuddhi She, Jnana Dipti. So that is, you need to have some information with you. Jnana is knowledge. Dipti meaning lit up. So it is with that information that you can look have some peep into the darkness. So even into jogging, let's forget the plastic and all that. Even if you're just jogging, if you know about psoas, then each time the strides are going up, you are in that silent appreciation of the psoas and the rectus femoris, which is lifting the thighs up. And each time you lift one foot, you know that you're not falling because of the gluteus medius. Then you run in that appreciative awareness of the miraculous responses of the body, moment by moment. Then the jogging again becomes yoga. It's like jnana yoga. You're knowing, you're putting that. So instead of running just for getting a certain number of steps or just for getting trim or something like that, this becomes something beautiful. Okay. So, but you need the jnana dipti. Okay, you need to have some knowledge of, right now I'm talking from anatomical perspective. So, in a yoga class is not where you go for practice. Yoga is always a wisdom context. You go to a class for learning something. So as yoga teachers, you should always remember, you are a teacher, not an instructor. The discernment of the division I make there are instructions, are a set of instructions for people to do. So we say, okay, 10 sun salutes you do. Okay, that's an instruction. Okay, take this pose, hold the pose for 2 minutes. That's an instruction. Okay, that's a yoga instructor. But you all are yoga teachers, where you're teaching them anatomy and philosophy and methods by which they can discern their own unwholesome thinking, how they can shift to greater thinking, how they can shift to connect to a greater presence, how to move from shape to state. That is learning. So each class, your students have to learn something. So you can't teach the same sequence, same words every class. Okay, that is repeated. Every class there should be something new. Either anatomically or philosophically, something for them to consider. They learn something, a method by which they can embody, and then they put that to practice outside your class. So you go to a yoga class for learning, then outside the yoga class you put it into practice. Okay? So don't think of yoga class, going to a yoga class for practice. You're going to a class. See, same with like musical instruments, piano. You won't say you're going to have a piano practice. When you go to a teacher, you say, I have a piano class today. You're going to learn, rest of the week you have to practice what you learned. Yoga is similar. Okay? But you have to teach. If you're only giving a set of instructions, then yes, it's like a practice. Then vritti pratyaya samskara. So that was another thing you asked. So vritti is what we call as an emergent experience. So when we watch ourselves, the very term watching ourselves, you have to know that there is no object called self. So watching ourselves, what we mean is watching our experiences. Okay? So ideas of what the self is, that all is an experience. So we are watching experiences. Experience is vritti. Now this vritti comes from what is called pratyaya. Pratyaya is the possibility of an experience, energetic possibility of an experience, which when you give attention to it, it becomes a vritti. Is that okay, Pekon? So, Pekon, if I now tell you to become aware of your left outer calf against right heel. Okay, right now the way you're sitting, now you're aware, right? Left outer calf against right heel. So, when you're aware of that touch of your left outer calf against your right heel, that is the experience. That is a vritti. But that sensation was available to you earlier also. Because your skin, the nervous system is always picking up that input. So that is called a pratyaya, a possibility of an experience, which when you give attention to, it becomes a vritti. So vritti needs a pratyaya, a causative factor, and every moment we have millions of pratyayas, okay, in us. There is our whole life story, stories of other people, all of these things are lying in us as possibilities of experience. If we give attention to it, it keeps on becoming experiences. And plus there are stimuli coming from outside. So if you listen, you'll pick up sounds from outside. Sounds are always there. That means they are pratyayas. When you listen, it becomes a sound in you, then it's a sound vritti. Okay? So there is a car sound vritti when you give attention to. That's an external pratyaya. Then there is samskara. Samskara is after you have any experience, that settles down as an energy pattern along your body patterns as well as neural patterns. And that again tries to come out and become a vritti. So the residue of an experience as a neural pattern or a body pattern, that is called a samskara. Okay, the residue of an experience which is always trying to again become an experience. Okay, so you had an experience of something tasty, of an ice cream or something like that. Then that residue goes in and that samskara wants to again become a vritti. So it will keep on reminding you of that taste, of that nice feeling. So it's always then coming out as a pratyaya, which when you give attention to, it's a vritti. Okay? Then you are clearly saying, I feel like having that ice cream again. Or I feel like calling you again. Because that last time was a beautiful experience. So that is vritti settling down as a samskara, which then is always coming up as pratyaya, which again becomes a vritti. Yeah? Now, samahita chitta and vyuttida chitta. Chitta means what? Consciousness, and that can be turbulent or that can be settled and calm. Okay? When it is turbulent meaning your samskaras, okay, the soil bed of consciousness is full of like jumping, heaving samskaras, which is just rising up to become pratyayas, and the pratyayas are leaping up to catch your attention to become vritti. That is a vyuttida chitta. Okay? So, you had an experience with a person or you had an experience with something, and that experience is settles down as samskara, but it's always leaping up as a pratyaya, and these pratyayas are leaping up to your attention all the time, where you find that wherever you look, you start to see some resemblance with the person you want to see. That is pratyaya. Okay? Starting to color your perceptions. So that kind of thing is vyuttida chitta. Both. Pleasant is not very active. Pleasure, yes. So you had an experience which had some height to it, it had great pleasure to it. Those samskaras are loaded. Okay, they are with the spring. They keep leaping up for a repeat. Pleasant experiences are happening all the time. Okay, somebody sees you having a nice, pleasant conversation, a nice smile. We forget all the time. They don't keep on coming up. But pleasure and pressure, they are loaded with springs. Those samskaras, and turbocharged with emotions. They are the ones which leaps up all the time. So fear, big. So something they keep on coming up. Okay, so yeah, that is vritti pratyaya samskara. And samahita chitta and vyuttita chitta. Samahita chitta is when, so samskaras, okay, just to again tell you, samskaras and pratyayas are what is driving your experiences. Okay, they are the fuel of most of your experiences. They keep, you're basically repeating yourselves. Okay, they keep on coming up. The stories of the past in different ways, they just keep on coming up. The experiences of the past, pleasures and pressures and all those things, they just keep coming up. So now we need certain experiences which is wisdom laden, which is full of wisdom, where you connect to something beautiful through, which is not about pleasure and pressure, but yet it is profound, it touches you, it is beautiful, and you would like to have that more. Okay, that is samadhi samskaras. Okay, so you should get samadhi vrittis. So in the sense that you go to a yoga class, okay, the yoga class, if it's any of you teaching, you are getting the students to connect to their body in a different way. You're asking them to look at the body with kind of a reverence, to look at body as a revelation of energy. You are expanding their perception of themselves. And you're releasing many wholesome, many unwholesome samskaras through their body, through the postures. You change their breath pattern, and by the time they lie down in shavasana, they are cleansed. They taste andarshita swa atma sukhava bodhi. They taste some other high of their essence. Now that experience also settles down as samskara. Okay, where when you, in the class the teacher was saying, wish from the heart, lokas samasta sukhino bhavantu, wish from your heart the best to your friends, to your benefactor, to people who you're having difficulty with, and from your heart you're doing the back bends and then wishing, and then you start to feel beautiful. Okay, that settles down as a samskara. Instead of blaming and hating and swear words inside, suddenly you find another feeling from wishing others, from letting go. That when it goes down and as samskaras, that is a samahita samskara. Okay? Now, in the soil bed of consciousness, then you'll have a fight between vyuttita samskara, samskara about that person did this to me, so I'm right to hate that person. And then this samskara is saying, different causes and conditions, on my side I let go of hatred, I let go of this, I am at peace, I wish everybody best. That samskara is also there. And finally, when those kind of samskaras are more in number than the other kind of samskaras, then your whole chitta becomes samahita chitta. It's a settled consciousness. Okay, so that is the direction. So Patanjali talks about the first chapter of Yoga Sutra is for people with samahita chitta. And the second chapter is for people with vyuttita chitta. You know, like then we need 8 limbs of yoga and all that. Is it kind of clear? Yeah. Now you'll have a 10-minute discussion with Shailaja leading you, all the 4, whatever we discussed so far. Anything you need further clarification, anything, you can ask her. Come quickly, install yourself in the middle, Shailaja, and others around you, and I'll be right here. Yeah.